Are we going through a superhero fatigue or no? You have probably heard this question or this topic of conversation come up amongst a bunch of different content creators over the past week or two. You might have even started hearing this conversation about a what if we hit superhero fatigue last year, or maybe even the year before that. This has been a real thing that a lot of us do have to wonder if it is hitting us right now, how hard it's hitting us, and if it's truly here to stay, how long will it actually last? I have even mentioned it recently in a couple of my videos about how I do think we are in a fatigue of superhero movies right now. I think we need a little bit of a break, and I think we need fresh original ideas. Reboots, remakes, and sequels that are unnecessary is really plaguing the film industry today. For somebody like me who absolutely loves superheroes, loves the DC world, loves Batman, I also love film, and I do think that a break is necessary right now because we are getting too much mediocrity. And there's the term right there, mediocrity. I personally don't think we are hitting superhero fatigue in the sense that nobody wants superhero movies anymore. I think we're hitting a superhero fatigue in mediocre movies. Movies that don't matter and movies that people do not care about. I'm going to center this video more so on the DC side of movies that have come out ever since the beginning of Man of Steel. You can have this same conversation with Marvel, because I would argue that Marvel is a huge culprit of superhero fatigue. Ever since Endgame, they've had an unbelievable amount of projects that have come out. More than half of them are forgettable and completely unnecessary additions to the Marvel world, and a lot of their films and shows do not carry as important of weight as the Thanos saga did. And I would still even argue that in their 10, 11, 12-year plan just to get to Infinity War and Endgame, there were tons of projects that were not needed and were completely useless. Although I'm not going to do too much about Marvel, I'm just going to focus on DC, and I'm going to give you kind of a rundown on what I think is mediocre, what I think is meant by superhero fatigue. Of course, the whole point of a connected universe is you introduce your heavy hitters. In DC's case, you would want to do Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and then you would like to translate that over into Justice League characters. And then once all those characters are decently fleshed out, you can now go to B and C and potentially even D class characters and get those characters known. It seems like, and especially recently, the only way to really develop a story, and if you are developing a wider connected universe, it seems like they only wish to develop the wider universe's story in the main character's movies. Whenever they make a movie about a B or a C class character, it may take place in the world they're building, but they don't ever really seem to have the balls to connect the world to that solidified movie and actually give you wider connected consequences in that film. And I'm going to give you some explanations on what I mean. First of all, let's just look at the two first DCEU movies, Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. Man of Steel is a fantastic beginning to a DC world. It establishes Superman, it also establishes Clark Kent, and it also establishes the fact that there are aliens out in the universe and that they are not the only beings out there. So now, not only is who's out there in the DC universe, but it's now who is also on Earth, because Superman's not going to be alone. And because it was the first movie in a universe, you don't want to throw too much in people's faces, but the movie did do a great job at showing little hints and Easter eggs. It showed that Bruce Wayne Batman was existent in this world. It also showed that Lex Luthor was existent in this world. It gave you things to grasp onto in preparation for the next movie. Now you go over and you look at Batman vs. Superman, and I always say this, but say what you will about the film. You love it, you hate it. For me, I absolutely love it. Think it's one of the best comic films ever made. And yes, even though I will even say there might have been a little too much thrown into one movie. Maybe they needed to scale it back a little bit. The most important thing about Batman vs. Superman is that it is directly tied into a connected universe. It's taking things that the universe began with, it's molding new things for the future of this universe, and it's also showing you things in this movie that will directly cause impacts of the future of the DCEU. So already the first two DCEU movies feel connected because they were created that way. There's consequences and there's impacts from both movies that will be dealt with in the future. Now let's look at the Suicide Squad from 2016. That movie is absolutely terrible, at least in my opinion. I think it's a really bad film. As much as people may want to blame David Ayer, at the end of the day, a lot of the blame for this movie has to go on Warner Brothers. We complain about mediocrity, and a lot of the times mediocrity comes from the creatives, but this time around you gotta blame the company for mediocrity or bad films in general. Now, I'm not saying David Ayer's cut would be good. I think I would just be curious to watch it in general just because I want to see what it looks like. Now, when we're talking about connectivity though, the Suicide Squad, even though I think is not a good movie, it does do an okay job of showing connectivity. Not the best way possible, but it certainly does a couple of things. Like having Ben Affleck as Batman in the movie certainly helps. Having him show up as Bruce Wayne with Amanda Waller helps. Showing off the Superman symbol at the beginning of the movie because he is now dead, that definitely helps. There is connectivity there, even though the movie is bad. And let's be honest here, there would be even more connectivity if Warner Brothers just let this movie play out the way it was going to play out, because at the end of the movie we would have seen an appearance from Steppenwolf, which is the direct villain of the Justice League film. But fatigue has now just been created in this movie, whether or not people saw it at this point. There is now already a fatigue in watching movies where you don't understand what the end goal was, because now when you watch that Suicide Squad film, it really leads to nothing. There is no end goal for the wider universe. And as these movies start to come about, which we got a lot of them coming up, the fatigue becomes bigger because now there's going to be this tiresome feeling of not understanding where the DC universe is going from here. And the fact of the matter will be, why should we continue watching these movies? You of course then have Wonder Woman from 2017. And yes, that is a solo movie. You can't do too much to have implications for the future of a DC universe, but you can certainly still connect it in great ways, and they did do that in great ways in this film. It does directly show you how Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman has gone from Themyscira to World War I through history just to get to Batman vs. Superman. Your biggest stretch of fatigue comes after this though. And why? Because Warner Brothers ruined everything. They had no idea what they wanted to do from here. They should have just let things go the way they were going. But no, we can't have nice things with Warner Brothers, clearly. Your next 4 movies in the DCEU are Aquaman, Shazam, Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, and Wonder Woman 84. Here is a universe that was directly trying to bring you to the Justice League and to the future of these heroes and villains. But what they did is they tore everything down and they said, let's just randomly make solo movies, or let's just make movies about other characters that we think people might like because of their name. It's the only reason why Harley Quinn got a movie. That and Margot Robbie herself being a popular actress. But the fatigue hits with mediocre movies that have no bearing on a connected universe. Unless you can specifically tell me that the movie you're making has no bearing on a connected universe, then I might enjoy it the way a lot of people enjoyed Batman, the way I enjoyed the Batman movie. But once you tell me this is a connected universe and nothing is actually leading to anything at all, this is where the fatigue is hitting. You know what? Sure, Aquaman made a ton of money, and it was really great to see a DC film kill it in the box office. But when you look at the Aquaman film, what does it do to progress the DCEU? Nothing. The Shazam movie, sure, it was a decent film, nothing great, nothing horrible. It introduces you to a new character in the DC universe. Yeah, they have some Easter eggs to Batman, Superman, but what does it do for the overall DCU in expanding the story? Absolutely nothing. Harley Quinn in The Birds of Prey. Yeah, there are some solid moments in the film. I do love Ewan McGregor as Black Mask, but overall, is the movie good? No, not really. And what does it do to expand an overall universe? Absolutely nothing. Wonder Woman 84. I don't even want to get into how bad that movie is, but how is it that your first Wonder Woman was so connected to a DCEU, and then all of a sudden this movie comes around and it feels so separated from the DCEU, as if there is no connection there in the first place at all? How long can you go on with having movies that have no consequences and the general consensus of being mediocre and still having people interested in your universe? It's not until Zack Snyder's Justice League came out where a lot of people started feeling happier with DC again. Say what you will about Zack Snyder, and a lot of people actually started appreciating this connected world again. All these characters we were shown 5 years before this movie came out, it all felt like it actually came together the way it would have came together if they just let Zack Snyder have his time and release this movie in 2017, 2018. Zack Snyder's Justice League shows you the implications the world has had from the beginning of these movies. It also shows you what implications we might see in the future of the DCEU. We see Darkseid is coming to Earth. We see how Superman is a changed man. We see how Batman is a changed man. We see how all the heroes of the Justice League are changing things about themselves. Everything felt connected. But then once again, Warner Brothers decides to fall into the exact same trap with the Suicide Squad from James Gunn's Peacemaker show, and then Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Those two movies and that one TV show are all apparently in the DCEU, might make mention of a couple of Justice League characters from time to time, but it does absolutely nothing to expand the story. So the fatigue is really slapping you in the face now. Why am I paying attention to these movies while Warner Brothers lies to me that they're connected when they truly are not connected? One project is leading to something completely different, and it's contradicting one another. And of course, you have Black Adam. Black Adam did something really weird where it's connected to the DCEU, yet it is its own story and it's building off to something new. But introducing Henry Cavill is that connective tissue that we needed from Zack Snyder's world and the rest of the DCEU. But of course, look what happens. That doesn't even go anywhere in the first place. And once again, I will repeat this if many of you haven't heard me say this in previous videos, but we are having way too many superhero movies where the beginning of the movie opens up and they're fine and dandy. They meet their villain, they lose, they gain the courage to fight the villain again, they win, and then at the end of the movie, everything goes back to being fine and dandy, as if there was nothing that just happened in the entire 2-hour runtime we just watched. The problem is having these connective universes, it seems as if they only want to create that connective tissue in the higher up characters, in the Batmans, the Supermans, and the Wonder Woman projects. When it comes to the B and C class characters, they have no problem admitting they're in the connected universe, but their film has nothing to do with the connected universe. To avoid this fatigue that mediocre superhero movies are getting, I think we need to start seeing these B and C class superhero movies if we need to get these movies. They need to start having tons more connective tissue. Like, for example, a villain that Shazam may fight in his movie will have implications for the future of the DC universe and will be felt all across the board in all superhero movies. But instead, we're in a situation where you would never know that Shazam takes place in the same world as Man of Steel, and Harley Quinn in the Birds of Prey takes place in the same world as Batman vs. Superman. Another huge piece of fatigue is the fact that we are getting so many mediocre superhero films in these connected universes. And what are a lot of fans sitting here saying about these films? They're sitting here waiting for the after credit scenes. That's why people are seeing these superhero movies. They're not even watching the movies anymore for the film itself. They're waiting for the after credit scene because they want to see how it connects to the wider universe. I should not have to sit there for 2.5 hours and wait for an end credit scene that then tells me how it fits into the connected universe. Your entire 2-hour, 2.5 hour, 3-hour runtime should be connective tissue to the overall world. I don't understand why we have fallen into this problem. When Ant-Man 3 came out, all I saw people talk about was, hey, yeah, just saw Ant-Man Quantomania. So let's talk about the end credit scenes. Are you kidding me? And it really feels like two things here. Either, number one, a lot of these people are so devoid of film and creativity. All they want is the 30-second scene that shows how this is connected to a wider universe. Or number two, these filmmakers are so bad at making movies that they don't know how to put connections to the wider universe in their movies, which should already be there pre-production. This should already be written in your scripts, and you should already have dire consequences for the future of these worlds if everything is to be connected. I am not saying that your movies immediately need to become so wide scale that it doesn't even feel like a solo project anymore. I'm not saying that your solo project on a character has to start involving a ton of Easter eggs and callbacks and call forwards to future films. But what I'm saying is that these future filmmakers really need to add things that make you feel like you are watching a connected universe, because lately it has not felt that way. And speaking more on the DC side, it hasn't felt that way in years. And because the connected universe formula is a huge thing in the film industry today, thanks to Marvel, no one's gonna watch DC films when they have no idea what the hell is going on. Overall, I think they really need to start to question things moving forward into the DC universe. Do we need Shazam movies? Do we need Harley Quinn movies? Do we need even Aquaman movies? Do we need Suicide Squad films? Maybe we gotta start focusing on the bigger names again. And when that day comes where you do start doing the more obscure characters, the different characters, the characters that general audiences may not know of, they need to do a better job of making them more connected. I cannot stress this enough. But anyways, everyone, that's my opinion on superhero fatigue. Now I want to hear your opinions in the comment section below. What do you think's going on? Do you agree with me? Do you think there are also other reasons we're getting superhero fatigue? I mean, we've been getting superhero movies non-stop, no break since like basically 2008. So let me know what you guys think. But that is all I got for you on this video, everyone. So until next time, I will talk to you all very soon.